Good morning, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. Today, I am actually in the middle of Smith Lake, hanging out on a paddleboard, surrounded by water. Let's hope I do not drop my phone. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And today, we're going to resume our discussion of the Great Depression and its causes and impacts, in the hopes that we can kind of uncover some common ground between today and the past. So last time we kind of spoke about the popular theories about what caused the Great Depression, which range from like the Keynesian views that there was a loss of confidence in the markets and people began to flee the banks, the monetarist view that the shrinking money supply due to the gold standard being the global precedent at the time led to a contraction of the monetary supply. We did see about a 30% loss in like the overall M2 measurement, which is the Federal Reserve's broadest measure of the monetary supply. And then some of the heterodox theories, which include like inequality, like basically companies' customers could not afford to purchase their goods anymore because people were not paying their employees enough. And the Federal Reserve itself has been blamed for basically exacerbating the problem. So, what exactly happened as a result of the Great Depression? We've kind of discussed what led up to it, but there are a ton of different things. Really, the entire modern world kind of gets laid down right around this period. One of the big ones is the Emergency Banking Act of 1933, which included the Glass-Steagall Act of 1933. This is a United States policy, but similar policies were enacted kind of globally. There are four major provisions that were part of this bill, and like to spare you the boring details, basically what it did was it separated commercial and investment banking. So commercial banks could no longer invest, they couldn't accept deposits from regular customers, and this kind of helped to regulate the market so speculators were not disrupting the economy. It was created by Senator Glass and Rep. Harry Steagall, and it was finally overturned entirely during Bill Clinton's administration with the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act in 1999. What's interesting is as soon as this act was repealed, within 10 years we saw the next major meltdown of the global financial institutions. Nobel laureate Joseph Stiglitz has actually argued that when the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act brought investment in commercial banks together, the investment bank culture came out on top, and it kind of led to some serious issues in our economy. So I still kind of believe that separating commercial and investment banks should be part of our policy, but it's not anymore. And that may be why we're seeing such growth inequality throughout the country and the shrinking of regular opportunities. So during the Great Depression, we also saw political realignment in basically every major economy. Obviously in Germany and Italy and even Spain, we saw the rise of fascist dictatorships, which eventually led to World War II. But even in places like Newfoundland, I think, or was it New Zealand, they voluntarily renounced democracy. Authoritarian powers came to power in a ton of different countries. In the U.S. alone, 2 out of 5 banks were suspended. 20% of deposits that were held in banks were lost for good, and that came from like regular people's savings accounts. It would be like if your bank all of a sudden confiscated a fifth of your money, and then they just were like, yeah, it's there's nothing we can do about it. We need it to stay afloat. In the U.S., we did not see a fascist dictatorship, but we did see a ton of agitation from the bottom up. So there's this common misconception that history changes because of people up top kind of empowering the people at the bottom, but often it's at least a two-part play, if not the opposite way, where people from the bottom start organizing in the U.S. through labor unions, and other countries and in political parties here, but in other countries it kind of expressed itself through fascism, obviously. Political parties and labor unions organized in the U.S. and helped to unite the common working man, and they eventually brought Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who's a controversial figure, but it goes without saying that he helped lay the groundwork for much of what makes America America today. This includes things like the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is the thing that guarantees that you'll get up to $250,000 protected if you have your funds today in a bank that's insured by the FDIC. FDR also passed Social Security, Medicare, and as well as like the Public Works Administration, Works Progress Administration, the Civilian Conservation Corps, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, the Works Progress Administration. He even passed unemployment relief, a ton of social programs. And the whole goal of all this was to bring people to work, right? And they did bring a ton of people to work. During FDR's first term, unemployment fell by roughly 2/3. It went from about 25% down to about 9%. Now, this is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, probably for most people, but what that really means is once we really saw widespread economic pain, changes did start to occur. They were not always good, though. Some of them were, and some of them we still use today, like the Social Security Administration. That helped to bring a ton of relief to pensioners, older people that were no longer part of the working economy. The government also abandoned the gold standard effectively during this time period with the Emergency Banking Act. It basically allowed the Federal Reserve to devalue our currency, which did kind of help spur some more investment and stuff. The U.S. also saw massive Hoovervilles, which were basically homeless encampments, which we are seeing today. We're seeing a lot of things that are similar to what we saw leading up to the Great Depression today, although things are still not exactly as bad as they were back then. The one big difference that I see is we actually have worse inequality today than we did during the 30s. Full employment did not recover until war mobilization in the 40s. So for over 10 years, there was a higher than average unemployment. During the Great Recession, which is like the worst economic downturn of our lifetimes, I'm sure most people watching this of our lifetimes, then it peaked at around 9% in the U.S., which is what it stayed at for the majority of the Great Depression. So that's just something to keep in mind. Fortunately, after World War II started, the government invested heavily in industries domestically, and they were able to basically bring everybody to work. It fell down to about 2% unemployment by the mid-1940s. And it roughly stayed there for the rest of FDR's administration. He ended up serving 4 terms, which is unprecedented. After he left office, the government passed term limitations for the presidency. But yeah, that right there is really all I have for you guys today. A lot of things changed as a response to the Great Depression, which tells us that even though things may not seem like they're changing much right now, once the bottom falls out of the economy, which it probably will at some point, we probably will see a lot of change. Some of it may be very bad, though. So we'll see what happens. I've got an appointment for my car on the 5th of July with a Hyundai dealership. I would choose a different mechanic. The thing is like I have to charge the batteries in my car to drive it right now. And I got it looked at by a mechanic in Evansville, Indiana, but like they replaced the alternator and it did not fix the problem. So I'm really basically waiting for, I want to make sure that somebody that can actually fix the car has a chance to look at it. And the thing in Decatur, the Hyundai in Decatur, should be able to take a look at it. Now the good news is I was able to drive all the way from Evansville down here to Birmingham by recharging the batteries, so it seems like the car is fine mechanically. We just got to make sure that the battery system is able to recharge, and then should be able to head up to Michigan, hopefully before the end of this month, when I will be visiting some family in the Neshoba County Fair. For the next week or so, I'll be continuing to explore different parts of Smith Lake and the surrounding areas. I'll be going a little bit further each day, hopefully. But until then, what are you guys doing to inspire, empower, and uplift your community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part. Until next time, you guys have a good day now.